Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad wouldn't really ever be considered a good movie when thinking about the script or the plot or the flow of the entire movie, but it is actually an enjoyable film nonetheless. And that might seem odd considering that this film shouldn't really work at all and is kind of typical in most of the DCU shit show that we've seen so far, but it kind of highlights how that shit show style could actually kind of maybe work for once in a way, and maybe be enjoyable. Something that Batman v Superman pretty much failed to do. But in continuing the tradition of dark, gloomy superhero movies made for kind of dumbasses, Suicide Squad comes and reintroduces you to the fact that the DCU potentially, at the time that they're making movies right now, could probably never really have a decent movie, but we're just going to have to keep putting up with these majorly tinkered with by a major studio and messed with in the editing room and incomprehensible for what they're actually trying to do type of superhero movies. And I guess in that, this movie's fine. My expectations were lowered, probably because I saw this later, but also because I sat through Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and I kind of went, well, I know what the deal is. I'm probably not going to like these as much. And under that, guys, I had the most fun I've had with a DCU movie. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw the best DCU movie, a crappy, neon-filled, regrettable decision that somehow kind of worked out. And, you know, I do kind of not like this movie. Sure, it is like if you kind of ripped out a bunch of pages from a basic screenwriting book, put them together randomly and went, oh, hey, yeah, that's probably how you do a structure. And it fails in a lot of ways, but because of true star power from Will Smith, Viola Davis, and Margot Robbie, elevated this film in a way that you really haven't seen a movie star do since classic Hollywood, when movie stars would have to elevate dribble and mistakes that studios made. That was why they're such great movie star actors. And you actually have that in this, something that, you know, Henry Cavill could never do. But in this movie, they're having a slew of actors who are able to get that chemistry through to you as the audience, so you might actually be convinced this is a good movie. This is a good movie for people who like taking selfies and like taking moments out of superhero movies and acting like they are good movies. But superhero movies have moved past that. Comic book movies have moved past that. And if you actually enjoy movies, you should frankly fucking know better. Suicide Squad's not a good movie. It's a hot mess of a mistake of a dookie of a movie. It just somehow came out and garbled up between all these different visions of a movie coming out to have no flow or tone or anything. I still had a good time with it, even though while I was watching it, I certainly felt like I knew better. Suicide Squad takes place right after the events of Batman v Superman, where Superman dies. Shocker, nobody cares. But after Superman died, every government is trying to put together a team of metahumans, which is the buzzword they're using in the DC movies for superheroes. Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, decides to put together a team of the deadliest supervillains that they have in jails and try to make them do missions so they will have time revoked from their sentences, or even be set free, maybe, possibly, not really, or something. So she puts together a team including Harley Quinn, Deadshot, the Huntress, Killer Croc, Diablo, Captain Boomerang, and many others. And as she's decided to get this idea approved, shows how Enchantress will be a part of that, but unfortunately Enchantress gets out and causes a major disaster in Midway City and starts causing kind of an end of the world thing and bringing about like her brother or something. So the Suicide Squad is assembled to hopefully take her down, but first they have to get somebody and then do that, and it's all complicated. But that's why the Suicide Squad is in Midway City, and they have to fight their way out and hopefully do everything that Rick Flag and Amanda Waller want, so they can hopefully have their sentences reduced and get the job done. This movie is mixed up in a lot of things, and I think one of them, that this is a David Ayer movie. If you haven't seen a David Ayer's movie before, he directed things like End of Watch and Fury. He kind of has more of a leaner, mid-budget action movie kind of a style, and it definitely felt like he was trying to push himself to the next level with something like Fury, and I guess Suicide Squad is the next next development of that. Unfortunately, his style or his auteur voice didn't really come through with this movie at all. And I think most people who were writing about this film kind of thought that this would be more like a David Ayer film. And in certain places it is, but that also adds to extra confusion. I think most people thought this film would have its time more evenly distributed over its theme of the Suicide Squad. And really, that was never going to be the case, because knowing David Ayers and knowing that Dirty Dozen was a major influence on this film, and if you look at kind of more of those like Ocean's 11, a group of people going on a mission kind of movies, that's really at the heart of what Suicide Squad honestly is trying to do, at least in terms of that. Like, you can tell it's trying to do that, doesn't do that for like the whole movie, unfortunately. But I think a lot of people are expecting this to be like an Avengers, more like a team movie as we know them with superhero movies, and that's not what this film is trying to do, like, at all. Although I guess it is. It's kind of a failure on a lot of things. It's really focusing on like Harley Quinn and Deadshot and a little bit Captain Boomerang and some of El Diablo, but it really isn't going to talk about like Killer Croc as much. It wasn't really designed to do that at all. But I think another part of the problem with this movie is if this had just been a David Ayer Suicide Squad thing, people maybe would be able to understand that. But this film is trying to do so many things. It's probably, and is frankly, really confusing to tell you what this film is trying to do, and like having an opening montage that goes on way too long. It doesn't really have any faith in its audience at all. It does reintroduce Harley Quinn like several times, like your origin story keeps going and going and going. They do get it to flow better within the movie than I think you would naturally expect, and same with the Deadshot stuff, which does keep coming back and back and back, and it does get a little annoying after a while. You're like, can't we just get into the movie? And it takes the movie forever to really get into the parts of the movie that you like. That this movie is supposed to work with kind of the introductions that you've worked with the audience with and their knowledge of these characters. There's very little time you really get to do that. And then the film has to go from like basic plot point to basic plot point, and that makes it like very hard to go, wait, do I like this? But I like this one part, but I like that intro, but I like how that's filmed, but it has this cameo, and it's just, you're just like, I don't know what this movie is, and this movie doesn't know what it is. And the problem with like this committee filmmaking, and it is kind of a disaster in terms of director versus producer, and if you read the piece in the Hollywood Reporter, which is fairly accurate to the movie I saw, frankly, is that when you have these huge tentpoles and Marvel's become such a big business, is that you have these other studios who are trying to do it as well. And the funniest thing is that every time these studios have tried to do that and get overly involved in them, they don't really work. But the only true example of a film that worked, that did the Marvel thing, that didn't have over studio involvement, was like Deadpool. And the hilarious thing is that all these films like Fantastic Four, X-Men Evolution, this turn out to be like such a mess of style and all that stuff that you're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, they just have no faith. And especially a studio like Warner Brothers, that the reason they are so late doing an extended universe is because they let Christopher Nolan do whatever he wanted. What changed? I mean, it's probably a change in management or something like that. It just feels like such a mistake of understanding, not necessarily you need to have a director's vision and have that auteur's vision there, which I think everyone kind of wanted for this movie, so maybe it was a mistake for this movie in general, but just that they need to let these films kind of have more of a general voice behind them. And even if that's a studio voice or something like that, it's odd that Warner Brothers, the studio that's been around forever and ever, doesn't understand how to do that classic Hollywood studio producer voice. It's kind of really shocking and sad, and might show more of a studio that's really completely lost its way. And having a David Ayers bad guy film could have really worked for it, but it feels like the same problem I have personally with something like Maleficent. The main thing that people like about Maleficent is, hey, Maleficent's the star of this movie, but the plot of it is pretty much your general kind of good guy type of protagonist type of movie, rather than making it a story about a villain or making a different kind of structured movie. Most of Suicide Squad is just a general superhero movie, but it stars villains instead of heroes. There's no real difference in that, and that's kind of the biggest thing at the heart of Suicide Squad. That's the problem. It majorly misunderstands the kind of film it really should have been and should have been for these characters, but instead goes, oh, I know how to write a superhero movie. I know what needs to happen. We need to have this big thing at the end with the villain and all this crap. And it just frankly falls flat completely. And the villain doesn't really work. A film like Dirty Dozen or Ocean's 11 is more about like the group and the dynamic and less about like the plot. I'm guessing you do not remember what the plot of Ocean's 11 was, or even like why them blowing up the chateau in Dirty Dozen was important, but you remember the chemistry, you remember the fun of it. And that doesn't even work with this movie, frankly. But you could say that the villain shouldn't be as important, and they could like downplay it like it isn't, but they try to make it act like it's something really cool when it's so general and basic, and it doesn't even work with the tone of the film, because you have like a big super powered villain in this thing that's trying to be dark and like realistic or something. This dark and gritty thing has just been holding DC down like crazy, and it just feels like the problems with like kind of your basic understanding of comic book movies. Having a dark and gritty comic book movie to me isn't interesting anymore. You've done that before. You've done that with Batman. Wasn't that Nolan's whole thing? Wasn't that in fact Tim Burton's whole thing before that? Why are we still doing that? Just because something's dark and gritty doesn't make it a better story. It's just a way to tell a story. That's kind of a 13-year-old's understanding of storytelling, because it's the first time they're allowed to see an R-rated movie or something with a little violence in it. Are we still going to like break stories down to like that kind of core demo at this point? It should be about good stories. Why I like certain things about DC Comics is the stories are so good, I can't deny them. It doesn't matter if you like Marvel or DC or you read Archie comics. The reason we liked Batman the Killing Joke, it's because it was a great story. I think the DCU, and this film kind of points it out, isn't thinking about what makes it a great story, whereas Marvel's been able to bring their great storytelling to movies. Every time I'm like, you know what, maybe they've got it. Maybe this could be good. It's scary because they're really gonna fuck up something like the first Wonder Woman movie, because they just really do not know what they're doing style-wise whatsoever. And that's sad, frankly. And I think this is a movie that everyone was hoping for, everyone wanted to be really great, and it is a bit of a disappointment, but to me it was an enjoyable one. I would really like to tell you I totally hated this movie and go along with everyone or something or whatever, I don't know. But maybe it's because I was so prepared that this movie wasn't good, and seeing it a little later maybe affected it. But I think I saw this film for the characters, and seeing like Margot Robbie having her big moment as a movie star, and Will Smith, and seeing Viola Davis in something other than How to Get Away with Murder, although I love her on that show. Seeing those personalities is really what I saw this movie for, and if you're seeing this movie for that, you're not going to be disappointed. It was amazing seeing Will Smith do that kind of Will Smith movie star thing. The reason you fell in love with him as a movie star, that's really on display here. He really gets scenes to work that should not work. I love the scene between him and Ben Affleck as Batman in this. Everyone said it's like the best kind of most star kind of scene they've had, and it really gives the weight of like, oh cool, you're seeing these two characters together, and that really worked. I would love to see Will Smith's Deadshot in more of the DCU, because he just has such a presence about him. Backing him up quite a bit is Margot Robbie, who, although I do hear a bit of her Australian accent coming through and her weird Harley Quinn voice, I thought did a fairly great performance. It's not the greatest material. I think she's definitely a movie star and a great actress, but I think she makes the most of her star-turning role and gets it to work as best she can, despite being in kind of a much weaker movie. I think people were waiting for her to arrive so much with this movie. She arrived because of the anticipation of this movie, but she doesn't need it. She's a great actress. Viola Davis is an amazing talent, and I think probably one of my favorite actors in this whole thing, and I will see anything for Viola Davis. She has just such a presence about her. She made the character of Amanda Waller really work and pop, and became a character who I'd really want to see again. That's the one thing. I think there are a lot of characters that come through this film that I'm like, I would love to see, like Harley Quinn in a Batman movie. I'd love to see Deadshot in a Batman movie. I'd love to see them all do cameos in Justice League, or Amanda Waller to do a cameo in Justice League. I'm going to go, oh shit, that's Amanda Waller. I suddenly have that kind of connective tissue for the DCU. I can honestly see this being more of a step towards a better DCU, because I somehow kind of care about certain characters in this. Particularly like the one character I think surprised a lot of people was El Diablo, played by Jay Hernandez. I feel like he should have gotten more screen time, but he makes the most of it. He has a well-developed arc, and he kind of has that character actor way of like knowing that this arc is working for him. I guess it's the time in this review where I talk about Jared Leto's The Joker. He's playing a 30s gangster like someone who's never seen a 30s gangster movie. His dumb laugh is like, I guess I'm supposed to like that. I don't like that laugh at all. He is my least favorite person I've seen play Joker. I understand other people are going to have to play the Joker. I just don't really like him that much. I think he kind of like overdid admitted he really wanted this to be a big role for him, but he almost does it too much. I was like, ugh, I'm gonna have to see him in a Batman movie. Fuck. Like, everybody else was like, can't wait to see them again. And Jared Leto as the Joker, I was like, God damn it. Just like not excited at all to see him again. So great job, Jared Leto. Suicide Squad was a mess. It has introductions going on through the beginning, tries to rip off Escape from New York while also being The Dirty Dozen, but not being either. It wants to be a superhero movie. It wants to be a gritty crime movie, which it probably should have been. It doesn't really do a lot of things very well, but I kind of am expecting that from the DCU. I'm expecting you guys to fuck up at this point. Why should I expect you to make a good movie? It's not like you're Marvel, and frankly, at this point, doesn't look like you're going to get close. So what should I expect? Was this going to be their Guardians of the Galaxy? I think they definitely wish it was. I think they tried, but it didn't work as well. Because the thing that made Guardians of the Galaxy work is because there was a Marvel style and there was a style of James Gunn. In Suicide Squad, there was a lot of people's style. I think the people who cut the trailer had input into this. It was just such a clusterfuck of visions. It came out as like, here you go, and you're like, that was fun, but what? Bad storytelling, terrible storytelling, in fact, terrible flow. It's for people who want to take obnoxious selfies and kind of talk during most of it. It's not for people who want to enjoy a movie. This isn't for that. If you just want to talk about how comic book movies and stories in general should be dark and gritty, just like your soul or some crap like that, I'm sure you'll totally dig this movie or something. But if you enjoy storytelling, that's really why this movie fails. It doesn't fail because of some Marvel DC bias. It fails because it's just a total mess of a movie. It works because you have some great performances with Margot Robbie and having Will Smith in there. Suicide Squad is probably the best movie in the DC expanded universe, but it kind of shows their style, which is having absolutely no style and being a clusterfuck of what the fuck am I watching? This is a dumb people's movie. And that's what Suicide Squad continues that tradition of. I had a good time with it, and I had a better time than I thought I would, particularly considering all the negative buzz attached to this movie. And I definitely understand it, and I agree with what everyone's saying about it storytelling-wise. I don't think it's worse than Batman v Superman. I think it's a lot more fun and enjoyable. This movie at least bumps from thing to thing so much that you kind of can't even pretend that it has some master plan that it knows isn't actually working, and having various characters and too much going on seems to be just how these movies are. It's just something I have accepted, that their style is being total clusterfuck of a mess. Hey, if that's how they want to play it, I guess I'll have an enjoyable time with something like that, as I did with Suicide Squad. I don't know if the rest of their movies will be able to at least deliver that, but that's what Suicide Squad gave me. I had a good time at a hot mess of a disaster. So if you have seen Suicide Squad and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.